Welcome to Higher Self Mastery, the podcast for women ready to leave behind who they were told to be and remember who they truly are. I'm your host, Dharmi Schumacher. This is your space to come home to yourself, to honor the inner pull for more truth and more depth, and more meaning as you enter a new chapter of your life. Together, we're reframing midlife crisis into the midlife magic that it actually is, because this is your rebirth. Through soulful conversations and spiritual tools, you'll reconnect to your truth and reclaim your voice and live the life that your soul came here for. So let's begin. Hello and welcome back to another episode of High Self Mastery. Thank you so much for joining me. So today we are going to discuss why self-love is not just a soft, fluffy topic. It's not just about getting your nails done, having your hair cut, and taking an evening out to run yourself a bubble bath. It can be all of those things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But self-love is about so much more, and it is work that each and every one of us should be doing if we really truly want to begin to create the changes that we all desire in our lives and see different results. Because self-love is directly related to your self-worth, and the two dance together, and it's about this balance between the two of them. So let's begin to unpack this, shall we? So, as I said, self-love, begging your pardon, when you say that word, some of those more fluffier, for lack of a better word, more surface level activities may come to mind. And I do not denounce those. I think they are very, very important. And remember, each and every one of us are in such different phases of our life that for one individual, taking time out to maybe just take an hour or two to go and have a coffee or a glass of wine with your girlfriend could be a massive act of self-love, because maybe you haven't created any time for yourself in months and months. And so that bubble bath or sitting down quietly by yourself, being undisturbed to read a book that you want to read, those little acts may seem enormous, especially to women of our age, in our 40s, where we may be juggling our careers, juggling motherhood, juggling relationships and marriages, but also the demands of our changing bodies and our own needs as well. We are in a phase where we tend to give a lot of ourselves, or have gotten used to give a lot of ourselves outwardly and not really focus that time and attention on ourselves and put ourselves at the bottom of that list or that pile. I know it's certainly something that I had to very, very consciously learn to do, and only began to do when I really hit rock bottom with my own health, physical health and mental health as well. And I realized that just how much I had neglected myself. So it could be those simple acts. And if that's where you're at, then please let those be those very, very first steps that you take. But for some of you, it may be more about investing in a new course, investing in yourself to work with a coach, investing in a new business venture that you know is going to move you in the direction of your dreams and your ambitions and your vision. It could be booking that dream luxury holiday that you've said for the last 10 years that you would do, but you just keep putting away the pennies for a rainy day, instead of actually just living life now and enjoying what you have right now and making the most of it. So wherever you are on that spectrum, you be the decision maker and the guide for that. There's no right or no wrong. But what this conversation today really is about is how these acts of self-love directly correlate with your self-worth. And then this is where we start to go a little bit deeper, and how these little acts of self-love may seem surface level and superficial to some degree. And I say the word in the most gentlest way, not with any judgment. But actually, they are directly related to your self-worth, and that's why they are so, so important. When we lack self-love, you will notice that your self-worth will start to depreciate too and start to go down. When we lack self-worth, you will notice that the acts of self-love begin to minimize and go down. In other words, let's put it this way. Self-worth is what you believe about yourself, how you see yourself. I am clever. I am beautiful. I am worthy. I am talented. I am stupid. I am dumb. I am careless. I'm a failure. It's how you see yourself, how you perceive, how you identify yourself. Wherever that has come from. We've talked before on previous episodes about childhood conditioning, societal conditioning, or your own experiences that you've had as a teenager, as a young adult, and the meaning that you've then attached to the outcomes of those experiences, and then what you have turned those experiences to mean about you. So that is your self-worth. And self-love is how you actively, physically demonstrate the level of self-worth you have for yourself that can be tangibly recorded and seen in this 3D material world for the most part. When we have, for example, high self-worth, it is likely and fair to say that you are good at saying no when something does not align for you, or saying yes when it makes your heart sing. So boundaries, you're good with your boundaries. When you have high levels of self-worth, you are able to say, I deserve this time for myself. I'm going to book myself into a hotel, into a spa, a couple of nights away just for me, because I deserve it. I work hard, I earn money, I can afford it, I want some quiet time without anyone to answer to, any other responsibilities. I just want to shut myself away for a couple of days into rest, renewal, and just take care of myself. And so, yeah, there's my credit card. Book yourself in. Done. When you have low self-worth, it is likely that you demonstrate behaviors where you allow people to speak to you in ways that are cruel, dominating, out of term. It may be that you bend over backwards to do things for other people, to prove yourself, even when it's at a cost to you and your health. When you have low self-worth, you do not do things for yourself. You do not buy yourself flowers. You do not buy yourself nice clothes. You do not get your nails done. You do not do your hair. You may not even wear makeup. Not saying that makeup has something to do with self-worth, but, you know, depending on why you're choosing to do it or not do it. And those are the ways through our acts of self-love towards ourselves is how we are able to, in this 3D world, monitor our level of self-worth, which lives in the subconscious mind. So it's a beautiful opportunity. It's a window of opportunity to be able to use this as a gauge, as a measuring tool, to then be able to look at the real cause, the root cause, which lies within the self-worth, and where we are on the spectrum here. That is my first invitation to you here. Take a look, do a little audit. Just look back on the last week. And if you really can't find anything in the last week, go back a little bit further. Maybe do it in that way. So reverse engineer it from today, from whenever you're listening. Reverse engineer it and see when was the last time you demonstrated acts of self-love. When did you buy yourself just because you wanted it, because it makes you come alive, it lights you up, it brings you joy, just for you? When did you lay down firm boundaries to protect your needs and honor your energy, your alignment, your values? When did you invest in yourself last? When did you do those little acts of kindness for yourself, where you did run yourself a bath, or get your nails done, or buy yourself those new jeans, or, I don't know, new pair of shoes that you've had your eyes on for a while? Self-love comes in so many different ways. It's something, in essence, to summarize what self-love is. Self-love is when we put ourselves first, above the needs of anybody else. Not because it's a reward, not because we're celebrating. They may be reasons why you have done some of these things, and that's fine, but it shouldn't be the only time that you do something for yourself. Self-love is when we treat ourselves with reverence, like the goddesses and the gods that we are, the royalty that we are, the divineness that we actually are, and honor and see that. And irrespective of what we've done, what we've accomplished, whether we've accomplished anything or not, or succeeded or failed, it doesn't matter. Your self-worth should be unwavering. Because we are inherently divine. We are inherently worthy and deserving. Outside of any activity or experience or result or outcome that we create or have in this human 3D world, in this journey that we call life. So when was the last time in your little audit? By all means, put down the things that you did as a reward, as a celebration, but note that too. Was it as a reward? Was it for a celebration? Or do you put yourself first and demonstrate acts of self-love just because you are inherently worthy, because you are deserving, just because? This is going to be a difficult exercise for many of you. If you were anything like me, where I was 5 years ago, I couldn't have written a single thing on a piece of paper. Looking back months, and I wouldn't have even been able to write one thing down. So be kind to yourself. Be gentle with what unfolds, what you discover. Even if you are very good and you have a high demonstration of self-love, I want you to go to that extra level and find out when you are demonstrating these acts of self-love and take it to the next level, just because. And then check in if you are already demonstrating a lot of self-love. Make sure that you are demonstrating in all areas of your life and in healthy ways, not in ways that are giving you dopamine hits, because sometimes these things can blur and get messy. So I mentioned buying a pair of shoes or buying a new pair of trousers or whatever it is, right? As a reward, as a way of demonstrating your self-love for yourself. It doesn't count if you're buying those things if you're doing it for a dopamine hit, because it makes you feel better, but inside you're lost and miserable and you actually don't feel worthy in other ways. So you really need to pull this apart. It is deep work. This is real shadow work. This is inner child work. This is work that requires courage. So do as much or as little with this invitation. Go as far with it as you can. Go as deep with it as you want to. And you don't have to do it all in one sitting either. Just pick a particular area, unpack it. But if you are on that spectrum where you can't write a single thing down on the piece of paper, or you only have one or two things and they were like, one of those things was from 4 weeks ago and the other one was like 3 months before that, I want you to really take a close look at where do you feel unworthy? Why? Can you go back to some of the root causes? Can you pick one thing and just reverse engineer it and go back? Where does that belief come from in me? Why do I believe that? Did something happen? Did someone say something to me? And if it was really traumatic, it could be that you've blocked it. And this is where it does benefit to work with a coach, to work with a guide. And it may be something that you can't unpack on your own. But as an invitation, if you're ready to do the work and you want to try, sit in quiet contemplation. Sit when you feel safe. Do some grounding exercises and practices. If you need any hints and tips as to what you can do to ground yourself, I did an episode on that about a month ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago. So look back to that. Ground yourself first, because when we're grounded, we feel safe, we feel secure, in order to then really open up into the depths of our souls to find out where the pain is, where the hurt is. And set that intention and do the inner inquiry. Maybe you just sit down and see what comes out in some free journaling, some free writing. Maybe sit in quiet meditation and speak to your higher self and ask to receive the information. However you wish to do that. And if you aren't able to unpack anything and you're just hitting a dead end, then that could be a good time to maybe seek some support and assistance. But try. And in order to increase our self-worth, as I said, one thing that we can begin to do, other than the inner inquiry, the shadow work, the inner child work, to do the inquiry of where this is coming from so we can burst it open and release it and let it go and be gone with it and rid it, so that we can begin to rewire the neuro pathways. One way that you can physically, without even knowing what the core of that is, to begin to rewire from a practical perspective is to start doing the self-love work. Because these things seem really, really simple. And for many of you, like, oh, that's so easy to do. And I do all those things all the time. But I know from speaking to women time and time again, clients, girlfriends, my own journey, my own experience, how hard it is. You may have the best of intentions to go and do something for yourself. But then at the last minute, there will be a reason. If you're not watching on YouTube and you're just listening in, I put reason in quotation marks. Because, and I say this with love, those reasons are actually resistance and excuses from your ego, from your fear, from your amygdala, trying to keep you stuck in the same old patterns and the same old belief systems. So at the very last minute, you may always find yourself cancelling. You may make the plans with your girlfriend. You may make those plans to go out and do something for yourself. You may even book onto a retreat or a yoga class or a spa retreat or a facial or a massage or whatever it is you've made those first few steps to do for yourself. And this is where it's not about the odd occasion when this happens. This is when it's a pattern, right? It's always about patterns. At the last minute, suddenly something really important's come up with the children. Something really important at home's come up. Suddenly there's a deadline. You just can't get the childcare. You can't get out of it. Whatever it is, you find a reason to not attend, to not put yourself first. That resistance is not coincidence, not by chance. That is where you begin, when you start to do this work, you begin to have a greater awareness and you notice and you're like, oh, hang on a second. Didn't I also cancel on something similar the month before? Or I booked this and I signed up for this, or I said yes to this and then I bailed on that and I pulled out of that. Okay, what is that really saying? What is that showing me? It's showing me that it's really, really difficult for me to do something for myself first. But that is the reason why I must. And then you find the courage. You don't allow those reasons, those excuses to come into the forefront. And hook or by crook, you get yourself to those activities, whatever they are. Or go and do the things that you said you were going to do for yourself. No matter how much resistance you feel, no matter how many excuses and reasons come up in your mind, no matter how uncomfortable it feels, go and do that thing for yourself. Because when you do that once, not only will you realize you didn't die on the other end and the world didn't fall apart when you went, and actually everything just ticked along just fine. The next time, yes, you'll probably still come up against some resistance again, because it's not just going to suddenly rewire and change out of one experience. But you now have this lived experience of having gone through it successfully that you're more than likely to say, okay, I can do it again. And I know the importance of why I need to do this, because the more I take these physical steps towards putting myself first, these physical steps and acts of self-love, of honoring who I really am, the more I do that, the more my self-worth on the subconscious level will grow and expand. And the more my self-worth grows, actually these acts of self-love become easier and easier and easier to do, because they are in harmony with each other. They dance together. They balance each other out and they work together. One shows you on the outside what's going on the inside. So the work can be done on the deep level and sometimes needs to be done on the deep level, but in conjunction with that, begin with the work on the outside too. I could speak more and more about this, but I actually really just want to keep this quite a concise episode because they are in themselves pretty big topics. I could speak for an hour just on self-worth. I could speak for an hour just on self-love. But that's not what this episode's about. This episode is really about understanding their relationship and how it is so important to begin to understand this and see how they dance together, and how you can begin today to start taking steps to increase each of those by working on both sides. Okay, that's it from me today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts and any takeaways that you've had. Until next week, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Higher Self-Mastery. If something landed, moved you, or sparked a shift, I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and share this episode with a woman in your life that is also ready to rise. And if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast, especially in these early days. It really helps others to find this work too. If you're craving deeper support and sisterhood, join my mailing list using the link below, where you'll be the first to receive free meditations, learn about up-and-coming retreats, and other ways that we can work together. Until next time, honor your truth and trust in the timing of your becoming.